Hello and welcome to a part one, so to speak, of the painting in Photoshop. I'm adding this kind of after the fact, but we're going to talk about the brushes in more detail before we get into actually painting. If you look at this piece, I simply went into File, New, and created an 11 by 16 and just made it 72. Something to practice with. I wanted to show you that. Just click OK. In my case, I've already got it, so I'll just cancel. Now you notice I've got a little bit of a change over here in the setup. And if you look up here, this is called Steve Special. And what I did, I put the brushes up here. So if I click that, I can immediately go to one of the brushes and start working. And down here, if I click on layers, that pops up and I can work on layers. So I have some of the essentials right here. I can also go up to Window and go to Brush Presets, and notice how humongous that is. I can basically shrink this up a lot, and we'll just turn it into something more like this. And I can bring Brush Presets right in next door to the brushes. So if I click that, I can bring those up. I can have the color swatches and the color box too, but I don't really want that. So what I did then, because this is all very modified, just the way I like it to be, if I click on the navigator, you can see I can make this much bigger and push and pull around the screen at my leisure. And the way that I saved this, let's just go back to the layers palette. I went to Window. Once I got all the things set up here that I wanted, I went to Window, Workspace, and down here to New Workspace. And then you just type in the name you want, and you can click these as well if you've made any changes there. I think this makes it a lot easier, and you can have as many of these as you want. They don't take up a lot of extra RAM or anything like that in your system, but it sure is nice to have this set up the way you want it, number one. So I can very quickly go over here and check on my brush, the details of the brush I'm using. Let's just go into the brushes. Now this is the normal brush that we use in a lot of Photoshop. Right now it's set to white. If you come down here to the bottom of the toolbox, there's our foreground color white and our background color. We can click that little double arrow and see our background color, so we can just toggle that back and forth, or press the letter X as in X-ray, and that will toggle. If we happen to have a different color in there, let's just do that, and we want black and white, all we have to do is press the letter D as in dog, and we get the default colors. Again, you just press X to toggle between the two. Well, in this particular chapter, we're more interested in painting, so we don't use this particular brush as much, but we go down here, hold that down, and go down, and here's our mixer brush. This is the one that we really use for painting. So notice immediately over here we see the preview, and you see all the brush bristles in here, and it's nice and smooth and all that. But right here is basically the control panel for this bristle brush, and right here is a round fan. This is the 25 is typically what I use for a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, I did this entire painting with that bristle brush. Now, I didn't just use the bristle brush the way you see it there. All through this painting, I was going in and adjusting these things over here. Now, the great thing is we can actually save. If I said, well, I need this brush to be stiffer, and you see immediately the preview changed. I need more thickness, so it lays down more paint, and I need less bristles. and you say, you know, I use this a lot, so I probably need to save that, right? So what you do is come up here to the top of the panel, and this little down arrow that's right here, click it. I'm going to have to bring it over or you can't see it. So we click it. Look, I'm tracking a package. And we want a new brush preset. And then you can just type in whatever name you want to call this. Thick for whatever. You know, you can type in there what you use the brush for. Click OK, and it is now the last brush, I think, in your palette. Let's see, the best way to do is go to brush presets, and right here it is. If you let your brush hang over or hover over it, you see thick for question marks is what I put. So there's the last brush, and then you have all of these other presets that can make some interesting patterns and so forth in your paintings. Just lots and lots of great brushes. Some of them obviously would be chalk and things like that, but you can still use them to paint with. Use whatever you want. But right here you see this is the typical fan brush, and again we go right back over to the brush and we can change the qualities. We can change the angle of it. Just a lot of things that we can change, and you see the change in it there, even on the length. Then you can go to shape dynamics and you see immediately what took place, and that all depends on things right here. Now if you're not using if you're using a mouse, this really doesn't pertain. If you go in here, and this one you can see that there is pin pressure, so the harder you press, and let me just do that. I'll get my pen and let's go down here and the bottom of the layers palette and get us a, click on the layer, and let's put a new layer on there, and we're going to paint, and so we got to make sure that sample all layers is checked up here at the top. And let's just go back to the brush again, and let's see there's the way it looks. And let me see if I can get my graphics tablet is not wanting to work for some reason. I see the reason. Let me fix it. If something is not plugged in, it doesn't work, come to find out. So let's go up here again. Let's stretch this back out where we can have a better look. And I'm just going to move my mouse into the screen with the pen this time. And now you see it. So if I paint, you see right off the bat that started moving. So the reason why, this is an 82, now it's a 106 megabyte file. So it's really a huge file. Let me see if you can see the stroke that I did there. See it move across there? Now the thing is, we're really moving a lot of paint at one time. And notice what we've got here. It's very wet, and we're going to get into wetness and dryness more in a little while. But this is extremely wet. That's okay. But this flow is really high. So normally it's going to be around 50 or so. You can see there's not a lot of difference in it, but some of this depends on the pen pressure. So if I turn that off, let's see what it does. So we don't hardly see anything down there until we get in the blue. Let's see what the blue looks like. Let's change it back to pen pressure. This time I'm going to really hold the pen down hard. I can't really see. Let's do it light. Yeah, I'm just barely stroking, and you see very little. There it goes. So that's one of the beauties of using a pen. Another thing is, if we click right there, this little eye down here, you actually can see an animation of what the pen is doing. So if I move out here, you see I'm pushing down. Now I'm painting. Now if you have a graphics tablet that has sensitivity to tilt, and this is one of the oldest graphic tablets there is, this just shows it's basically coming in contact with the background. So then it shows as long as the animation is running, then that's how much your processor is still working. So just paint a little bit and you see it move. So this can be helpful to let you see things going on. And like, it's obvious that we don't see the thing tilting or even spreading out, which in a newer pen, a new tablet, you would see this actually smash down on the palette or down on the painting as we move it, depending on how much pressure. I find this thing to be, and I'm just going to X that to get rid of it. I find that interesting sometimes, but anything that uses up real estate in my image, otherwise anything that takes up space that's not essential to what I'm doing, I get rid of it. I want all the space in my window that I can have. That just gives me a better overview of what's going on. So that's basically what Shape Dynamics does for you. And if you had a better pen, I think the newer ones, you would see some of these things change. I can change the angle jitter, as you can see in the preview down here, and the pen pressure. I can change it to several different things, whether they are beneficial or not. Now, most of the time I don't have Shape Dynamics on, especially if I'm trying to get nice brush strokes. And if we zoom in right here, see the brush stroke there. So you see the individual bristles, and that's what I like to see a lot of times. And then if I want to thin that out, obviously I can just go over to the brush tip shapes, and I can just take the stiffness off by going all the way to the right. The thickness is to the right is just going to be disastrous. So that is as thin as we can make the bristles, so to speak, and you don't see a lot taking place there. But you can go up here again and change the flow, the load, and force it to move more of that paint, because it's loading your brush with more of what's there. See the strokes in there? And certainly if we make it thicker, it's going to really push the paint. The stiffness is going to really push the paint, and it's in that shape that you see here that we're getting that. But some of these things can really be helpful, not so much that let's get the stiffness off. Let's take the thinness back. Get the thinness over there. I like to have, especially if I'm working on a face, I like to have a softer brush, and any one of these brushes right here you can really play around with, but I like to get that all the way up, and like a little bit of the curve in there. Let's take the thickness all the way back. Let's see what we can do in the bristles. So you see, let's see, we got a flat fan going on. There's the round fan. So all of these are going to have a little bit different look, and you notice This is a lot softer. So let's go, you zoom in here and go to something that's a lot more prominent. Let's go to this mailbox. And if I smear it, you'll see that we can really soften that. You see the brush strokes, but you can move it back and forth and really soften that, give that a nice softness. Bring in the reds in here, and then we can go back and forth and lighten up how much we're doing this, light strokes, and really turn that into a nice soft feel. Okay. Just want you to get the idea of, we've changed the color quite drastically. Just softening those things up. Change it to flat point. And you see how we're moving the paint with it. It wouldn't be ideal, for example, to paint a face with something like this because it really moves the paint around. There's something like the mortar. You're going to have to make it smaller. But you can actually move that mortar around pretty good with this. Let's go back here. I can undo that because I brought some red into it. So we can, move that mortar right on down. Make that separation like a mortar joint. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see what we did. Let's go up here around this plastic tube that's in here. That's where his newspaper gets put. And since this is a painting, technically it doesn't have to be perfect. So we want to blend those colors a little bit. Again, our flow is really high, so that makes it harder. The load is really high. Makes it harder to blend those things sometimes. There. So it's really important, now we're on custom, we need to be on really anything from wet to very wet to me is ideal, because we can just pull a little bit or we can pull more. Again, I shouldn't say again, you'll get to this in the other part of the video, but right here is if we want to load our own color in here, we just click on this to select that color. Let's just say we want something based on this brick, so we sample that. Let's make it darker, so we'll say something right there. So now when we paint, we need to be on very dry or dry, and now we're adding that color that we just sampled, just a little bit at a time. Then we uncheck that, it'll quit adding color, and we switch this to wet. And then we're able to start blending the color that was already there and the color we just put on it. We move it back and forth, just blending it in. And this is a way to add things like highlights, which is what I did. No, I went too far. I basically put this lighter highlight on the edge of that plate just to draw some attention. and I blended it to where it wasn't white anymore. It was this gray color. But we could simply just click back on there. We want something that's more white, and we want this to be on dry. So we add the same color that's there. So we just kind of bring that in, switch back to wet, turn that back off, and now we're blending the color that we just laid down with the color that's already there. So it's not, it's just a matter of getting used to it. You'll forget. If you like the painting tool and you want to use it, you're going to forget that this has to be switched from dry if you're going to lay down your own color. See, right now I'm painting, nothing's happening because it's on dry. Means all of the canvas right now is dry color. The oils or watercolor or whatever our media is supposed to be is completely dried. So we can't push it around. We can't smear it. But if we turn this or change this to wet, that means the canvas, the colors are now all wet. So we can move them and smear them around. And then if we dry it again, we can't. Hopefully that makes it a little bit more clear and efficient. So let's switch back over to this, and we're on dry, so let's get a color here. Let's click there, and we'll just say this orange color, and we'll paint just a couple of strokes here. And you notice as I turn this, the brush looks a little bit different. Now, one of the things that we want to take a look at, and there are some of these that are called erodible tools. Like this is the pencil. Actually, that's the airbrush. So if I paint, I'm blowing paint on with the airbrush, so to speak. And again, I can go to Shape Dynamics and make it look a little different with pin pressure. Here's light pin pressure and hard pin pressure. Notice how it starts thicker and gets more narrow as well as more condensed. So that's what pin pressure will do. I'm just painting light strokes here, a little heavier, and then I'm holding it down hard and it goes to that. I'm going to do a Control A and a backspace. I think. Let me get on the right layer here, make sure I'm where I need to be. Oh, I got to fill the layer, so let me do that so we can continue to paint. Okay, so we'll turn the Shape Dynamics back off and go back over here. We have the sorry, I've got a little bit of cold going. This is an erodible point. It's like a pencil, so it's it does the same thing. I'm painting lightly or drawing lightly. Hold it down hard, and if we go to Shape Dynamics, I start off softer and I hold it down firmly, and I get a harsher effect. Not really seeing it change with pin tilt. Getting a little bit different there as I hold it down harder. So dynamics can be good. Scattering is really going to change the way it works. And sometimes working with foliage and things like that, this is a great thing to do, the scattering. And the number, the count, how many of those little pieces that are going to be there. Now notice my stroke ran out right there. So I paint, and all of a sudden the ink is gone, or the paint's gone. I'm not I'm not stopping painting, it's just running out of ink or paint. And let's fill that background again. We also have color dynamics and so forth, which we're not really into with these particular brushes, but let's go back over here. Let's turn dynamics off, and let's look at another brush. In this case, this is a chalk, so painting with it, again, shape dynamics. Change that to pen pressure. This is light. Just stroking it lightly and stroking it hard. Not a lot of difference. Change the scattering on it, and it's a whole nother ball game. But again, it runs out of paint fairly quickly. I'm just showing you the different looks that it has. And I'll fill that in again. So we've got several different shapes and tips and so forth. A lot of them in here. Here's this particular shape is really, really nice too. It comes in handy. This is a flat curve, so paint with it. It's really soft. Again, it has the ability to change itself, so to speak. You see what's going on in the preview. And we can change the thickness. Change the angle. And inside here we have a round fan. Let's go back over to 25's round fan and just actually put that on round fan. Want to stiffness up, don't want that up, want those off, and getting back to a normal brush again. Soft, hard, really doesn't change it. It does build up as I move over the paint over and over and over. It is building up. I'm just holding it down. And we can move the size of that up and down too, so we can better tell what it's going to look like. I like a lot of bristles. The length is fine. Run that back and forth. Okay, so then if we go ahead and pick up another color and start painting, you want to try to guess what's going to happen? Well, this is dry paint, so we're just adding paint to it, so it paints right over the top. Now, watch what happens when I switch this to wet. I'm leaving this on. It's dragging the white into the orange. Now let's turn this off. Just wanted you to be able to see what would happen. So we are wanting to just basically take the colors and smooth them together. So I'm just clicking and dragging and moving my pen up and down off the graphics tablet. You might be able to hear it clicking. And I'm turning it in a clockwise, actually a counterclockwise movement as I do this. So look how much smoother that all is now. And then I do straight strokes through it, and you see how it's doing. So we can blend these colors depending on these settings. And remember, we can add a lot more color a lot faster by changing how much we load it, how much we mix the colors, and so forth. See how strong that is now? Bring that white in, how strong it is. So all of these things play a factor. Normally they're located around the 50% mark. So experiment with that. Just lightly stroking it now to blend it. And have some fun with this, and on to the next part. Okay, so we've messed up this canvas yet again. Let's do a Control A to select everything on the screen, and then we want to actually just hit, no, we don't want to do that. Let's fill it with white. So I'm going to hold down Control and hit backspace and fill it with white, because now we're going to basically do a painting of something, you know, just freehand. So what I'm going to do right off the bat is I've got this background layer, but I don't like to ever paint, even though the background's blank. I'm going to create another blank layer, and I'm just going to double click that and call it painting. And now I haven't done much in the way of freehand painting in years. Right now we have this teal blue or blue green color, and make sure that's all on. Pick up our color here. So all of our settings look pretty good. I can just go like this and start painting. Now let's just go like this, and obviously I have a very thick full brush here, and I don't have any particular settings on that are going to taper my style or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit backspace, because it's on its own layer now. I can just erase everything with just hitting the backspace. I like that. So a brush is too big, number one. Now, one of the things I do when I paint something is obviously I sign it, and I'm just going to hit D to bring up our default colors, and then I just put my name in, and I can always transform this because it's on its own layer, but I don't usually use one of the painting brushes. Now this doesn't look bad, it's pretty soft, but I usually use the regular paintbrush, and that's a big brush, so we make it smaller, and that's a lot cleaner. That's one of the reasons I like to use the regular brush. And my name has the two little hen scratches below the C. Determines what clan that you're from. So there's my name, and I always put the flashy little thing, and I put the date. It's not there yet, but we're getting close. So I can erase this up here. That's a mess. So turn on the eraser and just get rid of that first attempt. Now I can take this file and drag it, turn on my move tool, I can drag it into any image I've got. So I come over here and let go of it inside of here, and there's my SIGI file. I always call it a SIGI file, so I can move it over there. Remember too, I can do a Control T and make it larger, smaller, however I want to do it. I can also just load this as a selection. So I would take my mouse, move it up here, hold down my Control key, Command key on a Mac, click on that. Notice it turned it into marching ants. Now I can fill that, switch the colors, press X if you want to, and fill this with white instead of black. So I'm going to hold down my Alt key, lets me paint with this color that's on top, and hit backspace. Hit it a couple of times, just make sure it fills in nicely. Control D, and there's my text or my signature in white. And then I can drop the fill to make it look, a little more natural. And I can put it anywhere in my image I want. So you see I've already got one in that other painting. If you notice, I also made it look like it's laying down in the image. And what I did was did the Control T to transform and basically laid it down with the transform tool. So now it looks like I signed the driveway. So remember, if you want to just save this right now as a PSD file, you have your signature forever as its own file. You can open it up along with your painting and then just drag this file right on top of the other file and let go. I'm not going to let that show again. I'm tired of that. There it is. So that's quick and easy, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to show you real quick in here. I'm just going to hit backspace and get rid of all that. Let's make this a little bit smaller so we can see all the real estate we do have in here. And we're actually going to paint now. So with the regular paint tool, sorry about that. With the regular paint tool on, I can go ahead. Let's pick a color here. Let's actually go here and grab a brown, and I'm going to, that's really thin. Let's make it a bit bigger. So I can paint my own trees. And so forth. And then I can come in here and change my color and paint with some greens and just add some leaves. But what I like to actually do is come up here to the brush tool, and I can go in here and click on like the maple leaf and select it, and now we can actually see how those are huge. We can go into the brush tool and select the scattering and so forth. The other thing is click on scattering, and we can knock the count down a little bit and change the axis scatter a little bit too. Again, we can change these to pin pressure and fade and all of that. So you can experiment with that. You want to have the leaves the colors that you actually want them to be. So let's find a lot darker green and a lot smaller size. So that's way too thick. So we're going to scatter those a little bit more. And we're not really getting a color variation, right? So we go down here to color dynamics, and we'll change this a little bit and the U a little bit, and we'll see. Let's make that bigger. Not seeing the color variation yet. So we'll do a Control-Alt-Z, and let's see what we got. Now we're seeing this is a little duller color than the other one. Let's zoom out. And this is one of the ways that, wow, make that a little bit bigger. And obviously we don't want them turned that much unless we really make them thick. Otherwise it's just going to look kind of strange. Let's make this one a little darker and this one a little greener. So you see some variations in the colors, and it's good to change those while you're doing this, so you get some depth buildup with some different colors in here. So I've overdone it through here, as you can plainly see. But how much better a deal would that have been had I just done the painting of the leaves on its own layer? Then I could have thinned this out naturally. But right now, the tree is drawn on the same layer too. But what I wanted to get to was actually taking your mixer brush and going in here, and then you slip and smear, so to speak, the leaves that you created with the computer. Then you just paint the leaves to really bring this out more and make it more painterly. And you notice it's dry, so let's switch this to wet and knock that off. And let's really take the flow up more. And notice now it's really a soft brush. Let's go over here and let's go on the brush tip shapes, and let's thicken that up a bit. And let's stiffen it so we can really move those colors around. I think you can see where this is going. I wished I hadn't put so many leaves down, so this would be a little more even, a little more noticeable, I guess I should say, the effect that we want to create. And you can get going, you can get going a little faster. That didn't look as good, so we can just go over that until we're happy. And if we zoom out just a little bit, I think you can see that these up here aren't looking too bad. So this is pretty much the tree that's in here was all done with just colors and started out with similarly. The owner came in and said he wanted it a lot darker, so these are quite a bit darker than I originally had. And this is the way I originally had it before he had me darken it down. So we went from that to this color, and he liked that dark color, so we abandoned this idea and went to this one. But you can see with these tools, we can turn this into a very painterly, and obviously we can go at this in a hurry with a huge brush, but then it's also going to look very hurriedly done too. So this is one way of doing it, but there's also, if you notice in this image back here, this was also dead limbs. So this was filled in also with a brush tool, and it was a leaf right over here, this little leaf right here. And I set the foreground and scattered them on there, as you saw in this image. Lots of lights and darks. And these also are done with Photoshop, scattering them around. You see some leaf shapes in here, but you can see how everything has been basically smeared with the paintbrush tools. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on how to paint. And it's, like I say, way too big of a brush to be able to control this well. But you can certainly freehand. Remember, we can always go up here and click on this and bring in, change this to dry, and we can start painting with that color. That's painting light. That's painting heavy, and that's the beauty of a pen. And then we can quickly change colors and get back over here and add some of that in. Go back and find a different green and put that in and slip and smear it. Now that's really heavy, so again we've got to go back down to wet, turn this off, and start bringing these colors together. And experiment with these brush heads over here, which one you really like to use. Like I say, I use a fan for so much of this stuff. This size, it can go in a hurry. It just won't look great. Alright, hopefully that helps. Well, hello everybody. We're going to work on one of my favorite things in Photoshop, especially if you just want to do something to relax or if you want to make some money. There are studios that don't do paintings themselves, they do photography, but if they find someone that will turn their photographs into paintings, possibly make a connection there for some extra money, depending on the quality of a person's work, obviously. Well, in this image, if you look at when you download the image of Bryn, look at the image size. So go to image size, and you'll see this is kind of an oddball size. I made it as big as I could to put it on the internet so you guys could have something halfway useful quality wise. You see down here that is over 3 megabytes. So, and right here, what we want to do so we can make this printable, if this were a painting that we were wanting to print, I would go for something more like a 150 for the resolution, and I would also take the height up. I probably want the width actually, the largest value to be around 20 inches. Then whenever we need to upscale it, normally this would be 300 resolution to start. But I had to resize this for the internet, so I wanted to work off the same size you guys have. So if this were 300, I would immediately bring it down to 150 and change the numbers to be something more like this. Then when you're done with the painting, you can obviously change it however you want. Now remember, in painting, the resolution doesn't have to be near as high. You're not looking for all the detail that you would have in a photograph. So 150 probably is going to be just about right. If you wanted to turn this into a 20 by 26 or something like that, it would be easy to do. Again, you don't have to worry so much about the quality. But this, according to an artist that does a lot of digital painting, the numbers should be in this neighborhood for effective use. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to do a Control-0, Command-0 on a Macintosh to fill the screen. I need to, have as much real estate visible as I can have. Okay, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what's the most important thing on the screen? Is it the chain link fence? Is it the flower? Is it the little boy? Is it the cap? Is it the bench? And so forth. Well, it's pretty obvious in this image that it's the little boy. I see a lot of artwork, and primarily digital artwork, where they come up to the edges of the main subject and they have a little trouble getting in close. The strokes tend to be rounded instead of coming in like it's a natural paint. Sometimes there's a little ghosting around the edge because they're afraid to get to the face and so forth. So we're going to protect this young man so he doesn't get all smeared and glommed up. So the first thing we do is turn on the quick selection tool, and we're just going to make a general selection around him to protect him. So we get all these areas that we can, get some hair there, not too much. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option on a Mac and get this in here. And that looks pretty good. A little bit right there on the arm. I don't want that, so hold down the Alt option on a Mac. Get that like that. And that looks pretty good. So a little bit right there at the hair that I want up there under the ball cap brim. And click on Refine Edge. So the edges don't look too terrible right here. We're going to move this over to white. We have some green coming in right here. I'm going to make that bigger, holding down the Control and the space bar, Command space bar on a Mac to magnify this area. I'm going to click a few times to make that bigger. And I'm going to go ahead, make my brush bigger with the right bracket key. And I'm just going to click right in here, try to get some of that fence gone. Everything else looks pretty good. Took a little bit more away than I wanted to. Control Z to undo that. We've got some jaggedy edges, so let's turn on the Smart Radius and move that up a little bit. Now we've smoothed that out quite a bit. And let's go down to Adjust Edge. I'm going to smooth that just a little bit more. And I'm going to shift the edge a little bit to the right, because if you look, sorry about that. If you look at the edge right up here, you notice there's a little contamination. So what I'm going to do is shift the edge right here to the left until that goes away. You don't want it to go any further than it has to. Now you've got some edges here that are kind of disappearing. That's not to worry about. I'm going to click on Decant Decontamination, run it up just a little bit, and I'm going to spacebar, holding down the spacebar, moving it around, making sure my edges are okay. And I want to go here and make sure New Layer with Layer Mask is there, and click OK. So now you see, here's our layer mask. Now if we zoom in just a little bit, see this area around his face that's kind of dotted? Don't know why it's like that, but what we can do is turn on a regular paintbrush, and we want to paint inside this mask. So we can just go along here, make sure white is turned on over here in the bottom of the tools palette. Space bar to move it up further. Let's move through here a little bit and bring some of the hair that's in there back out. Now I'm going to switch to black over here by pressing X and get rid of some of that greenish stuff. And we'll fix this in a little bit. Switch back with X and fill that in around the cap. And watching our edges all the way around. So we've got some jaggedy stuff going on up here. And if we want to get rid of that, press X again. Press X again to go back down here and fill that in. Looking pretty good. X, because we got too much green. X again, so we can go back to painting. It's not hard. If we want to do a good job, we have to take our time. You see some of this is kind of gone. Bring that right back in. And in here, there's some hair there that we do want. There's some stuff that we don't. So let's just do Control Z there and press X so black's on top. And we're going to paint some of that back out of there, because some of that's chain link fence and some of it's hair. No, that's not hair right up in there. There's hair right in there, and we don't really need that. We're going to make some hair with our brushes, but we don't need that. All right, let's bring back the collar. So I press X, which allows us to see back through that layer right here to see the good layer underneath that's see all that material's there. So we go on down, making sure everything's okay. Everything looks pretty good there. A little bit there that's problematic. Remember, all you got to do is, if you see things are going the wrong direction, just press X and you'll switch colors. Because you may be painting with the wrong color and things kind of go south. And a little bit right there needs to come back. Let's see how much. Press X again to get rid of that green. Okay, I think we're in good shape. Control or Command 0 to bring him up. Alright, now we can turn the other image back on and it looks just like it did. You can't tell any difference if you turn that eyeball off. Now what we're going to do to play things safe is do a Control J on this layer 1. This is the background. I'm just going to put that in there and click somewhere, and I'm going to do a Control J, and now we've got a background copy, and that's the one that we want to work off of. So right now, if I begin painting, we can turn that off, and we want the background copy. We can just paint layer. We'll just do that. This is what we made the selection on, and if we turn these off and punch that on, you see we've got a nice copy of Bren right there. We're going to turn that off and just paint on this layer. Now, what we want to do is sample as we paint from the same area that we're painting in. Otherwise, we don't want to just smear from one spot and get rid of this chain link fence, because it is very distracting. It's not something that you would find in a painting, not a chain link fence like this. So we can go to our paintbrush right here, click and hold that down with the left mouse button, and go to Mixer Brush Tool. Now, the mixer brush is totally different from anything else in Photoshop as far as brushes go. Notice up here, it probably will say custom when you first open it up. This actually lets you paint dry and various degrees of dryness, starting to get wet, down to wet, and very wet. Now what that means is, if you're painting dry, you're painting with the color that's up here. And I just turned that on. This is to load the brush with each stroke. This is to clean the brush after each stroke. So if those are not highlighted, then it's not going to load the brush each time, and it's not going to clean the brush each time. The reason why you would clean the brush is if your colors are getting contaminated. Otherwise, if you're painting somewhere else, you've been painting over here in the green, and then you paint in the white, and you're still getting green in it, you want to clean your brush, and it gets rid of that other color. All right, right now, if we paint, you see we're painting dry, and we're painting with the color that's in the color picker. I'm going to do a Control Z. I can load my brush each time. It's not really changing, obviously, and you see if it's dry, the wetness is down to 0. If I go down to moist, you see the wetness is at 10%, and so forth as we go down. Now the wet is 50%, so you can't even see that it's dropping in a paint. All right, let's do a few Control Z's, Control Alt Z to get rid of some of that. So if I go to wet, and I'm going to clean my brush, in wet, it means you've turned your canvas wet. Let me show you. Let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. See how I'm smearing the paint that's already there. If my canvas is dry and I reload, it's painting with this color. Turn off, reload, and we're not getting anything. Our color went away. So this is kind of an indicator. It should show you if you're painting with the color or not. Again, in dry, your canvas isn't wet, but once it's wet, then it's painting with the colors in your photograph. Okay, let me do some Control Alt Z's here before I get too far and can't undo. All right, now we are painting on the right layer, the paint layer, and I'm going to show you a little bit as we go along. I want to basically paint away this chain link fence using the color that is you see through the fence. So I'm going to leave it on wet, and I don't really need to clean the brush after each stroke, but I'm just going to use the paint or the colors from the area where my brush is. So what that entails is that I click and paint just a little bit, and I click again and paint just a little bit. Click, paint, click, paint, click here and paint. So what you're doing, let's actually reload the brush after each stroke. What I'm doing when I let off the mouse and click again, I'm reloading or painting from that new place, so to speak. Now, if I click on the brush head up here, this is one of my favorite all-time brushes. Actually, let me close that and go over here to the brush, or you can go up to Window, down to Brush. Right here is the fan brush that I'm using, and I really, really like these different fan brushes that are in here. I was thinking there was another one there handy. But these are the special brushes for painting and drawing right in here. And you can see in this preview window how the brush stroke looks. So if I go over here and paint, now if I want to have less bristles, let me make that bigger so you can see what's happening here. See what's going on? Lots of bristles, but they're much thicker. So change the stiffness, and you actually push more paint with each stroke. It's not a good idea to just do that all at once because it's really going to show in your image, but this is here for you to experiment. That's what this is all about. You can change the length of the stroke with the brush. And let's see, the thickness, the length, the bristles. If we click on where it says round fan, you can also change it to any of these. Round blunt. And all of these too, let's do flat blunt. You see the brush change, and you can also change the bristles on it. So lots of bristles, And it really, if you just swipe it back and forth or brush back and forth, it really smooths things out. Okay, I'm going to undo several of these little deals, not all of them. And so you get the idea. Now, here's a totally different, this is a flat blunt, and you see what it looks like on the painting. Let's go up here so you can see it. And it's more of a smoothing. You don't see the bristles so much. You can see the pattern that's right here, and you can control the spacing. Again, you can control the numbers of bristles, the length, and all of these will have a different effect. You can see that's kind of mottled looking. So this is the deal. You come in here and you just experiment with the different brushes till you find those things that you really like. Here's one that's really strong on smearing. Might be good for a lot of different things. And this one, it's not going to do as much as we would like, because we want to soften this and see some bristle strokes in here. You see that there aren't really any separations here in the bristles. The brush just gets thicker or thinner. And that's what we need to do, is go back again to the fan, and it's not too late to use the fan to fix this area up. Now see, this was a darker area here, and I'm clicking and dragging and re-clicking. I'm not just painting and going on and on and on. See, that's just gonna fill it with that one color. You got to click, smear, click, smear, smear here, click, let go, click again and start smearing, click and smear a little bit, click over here and smear. So you're grabbing new colors as you let go of your mouse and smear. Paint, I should say. No, we're not smearing. So again, we can make some more separation between our brush. We can do a little angling of the brush. The thickness, obviously we're going to lay down a lot of paint when we change the thickness that much. Let's really get that back down there. So click, paint a little bit, click again, paint. Now the trick is, I'm going to do a control minus. The trick is, we don't want, I'm going to make my brush bigger. We don't want to see the chain link fence, but we do want to see the colors or the tonal changes that are out there through the fence. Now the reason why we made a copy of Bryn is this, and we're going to make sure that sample all layers is unchecked. So we smear and really get rid of this fence. So we don't want the brush strokes to mess us up, and that's why we copied Bryn like we did, and I'm going to show you in just a second what good that did. Now if I turn this layer that just has Bryn on it, you see we painted right up against it. Now we're still on this layer, the paint layer, and I can still keep painting and not hurt Bryn, because we don't want, we're going to paint Brennan, but we don't want to paint him with the green. Alright, that's the big deal. So we don't want to contaminate. So continue to paint picking up and dropping. And notice I'm not having to do anything up here right now. I can make it very wet and all that stuff. I can change the wetness up here. I can control how much it loads of the paint and all that stuff. But right now, we're good to go. We just keep going and fill this in and not worry about all those dials and numbers and stuff yet. So I'm going to take advantage of that white and push it around a little bit, because I still want that in the image. I don't want that to totally go away. And you'll see, because we get so much green in there, we want the tonal changes. It makes the background more interesting to have a variety of colors, and we don't want it to be in a pattern like this chain link fence is basically giving us a pattern. Now make sure as you work on the image that you're using the same controls up here that I am, so your results are going to be very, very similar to what I have. You got to take your time and get rid of that chain link fence. Do not rush. And I'm going to pause the recording while I do the rest of the chain link fence. Okay, I've pretty well got this right side painted, and I will admit I went into my brushes and I changed the thickness just a little bitty bit. So I'm dropping a lot more paint in. Now I wanted to show you, I'm painting over the dandelion. Getting right up to the face. And because Bren's on his own separate layer, we don't have to worry too much about that. Now, the dandelion is going to come back to life in a few minutes, but I wanted to show you that got rid of that and pretty well have my colors taken care of down here. Smooth that out a little bit, and I'll go ahead and finish up the rest of it. Now there's a little, there's a little bit of brown over here in this area, and I decided I was going to use that some more, so I kind of spread that out a little bit. Bring some of that brown up just to give it some different color in the image. So I pretty well got it covered, and we want some nice brush strokes in there. So if you don't, if you smooth it out too much, try to drag those thick bristles into the image, and you don't want any of it to look unpainted. That would really mess things up as well. So now we need to start on Bren. Now he's on this layer, obviously, and what we're going to do is make a copy. Let's just go ahead, and we've got our mask fixed. We don't need it anymore, so I'm going to right click on it and say apply the layer mask. So now he's on his own layer. I'm going to make a copy of him, do a Control J, and I'm going to double click this one and say paint Bren. So this is just our good copy. This will be the one that we're going to paint on. Again, we go and we've got to simplify the image. Now notice there are some areas out here when we make it bigger that, sorry about that, we need to paint on the right layer and just bring that in a little bit more. Now don't have to worry about Bren's hair. We're going to bring in some new hair as we do this. Add to it. So we kind of get rid of some of those areas that didn't fill in just exactly right. Okay, I'm happy. Now, go up to the Paint Bren layer with the same brush or whatever brush you want to use. And I'm going to just start painting. We can't have details. I mean, just can't do it. This Cardinal, if we leave the Cardinal like that, it's not going to look like a painting. It's going to look like a photograph. So first of all, tackle the dark areas, like this shadow here, shadows here, And this is not an exact science, so you just get some of that dark there, some of this here. And what I'm doing is I just click and paint a little bit, let go. Click, paint, let go. Click, painting, let go. And I'm just clicking and dragging a little bit. Click, 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 click. I'm just doing that so you know exactly what I'm doing. Don't worry about little smears like that. And I'm going to paint from the white area. White area here. Here. Again, don't worry about the paint getting down there. If you look at a painting, you're going to see there are areas that the brush goes too far down something. Now, left bracket, I need to make my brush smaller. Trying to go with the contours. And make it a little bit bigger, right bracket. Clicking and dragging. Click, 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 drag, drag, drag. Is all I'm doing there. Alright, let's tackle the Cardinal here. I'm just holding down the control key and the space bar and clicking. That'd be command space bar on a Mac. Left bracket key. Get down in here and slap and smear. This is what my favorite artist, digital artist, calls this. Now, just start brushing this. It will translate, trust me. Now if I zoom out, still looks like a cardinal, right? Alright, let's get in here. We got to address these, and I'm just going to, I can paint over them. I know one's right in here, one's here, and I'm just going to go up, select a regular brush, and I'm going to go down to the color picker, get a black, and I'm just going to paint a little bit right in there, and then go back to my mixer brush and just smear that a little bit. And let's go ahead and fix this a little bit better. Now to the bill. Kind of go with the bill here. Straighten back. And we can add, let's say we want to add a little white. I'm going to do it with this on. And we want dry. So let me make that smaller. And we'll put a little highlight up there. That's a little bit strong. Control Z. Let's take the flow down. Now let's go back to wet. And we won't load that. We're just going to smear this. And we've got to be on the right brush. We are on the right brush. So I needed to be on wet. I put it on very wet. I'll just bring that in a little bit. And let's mix it up. Bring in some of the other colors so we can tone that white down a little bit. Now let's back out. let's move that back up here. So do it a little bit more. And we'll paint. Oops. Let's need to make sure we don't get any of that. So I've painted over just a little bit into the image. So what I can do is turn sample all layers on, and then I can brush that back again. All right, let's go back out. Again, we can subdue that white even more. That's the beauty of painting with the palette that just lets you do whatever you want to do. All right, let's move down to the hair. Now I'm going to make my brush bigger and just do a sample stroke here. Now remember, I'm sampling all layers. I don't have to do that anymore. I did it for that, and that's fine. Now I click and drag. Now that's pretty harsh. It's pretty thick. So Control-Alt-Z to get rid of that. And I'm going to go back up to my brushes, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not dropping a lot of paint. Let's just go ahead and take that back to 1%. Let's thin the bristles out just a little bit, and now let's see what we get. Click up here and turn that off. Yeah. Now you can also push up as well as drag down. Now we're getting a lot of darkness in there. Let me enlarge this, and let's pull down light. Push that up, pull it down. Getting too much dark there. And it has to look like it's, you know, it's really coming out of there. Again, we've got to go with the colors that are there, and we're going to add some colors too. We're going to add some highlights in this. We've got that fine hair coming over from here. We'll add some more of that. And we've got some of this hair coming from here. We'll add to that. Let's bring that out a little bit. Only want that light hair coming out. Take it back in, bring it back out, and smear that. All right. Let's zoom back out, see what we got there. All right, let's go ahead and bring some more down. Now you saw what I did earlier. If we want to add more highlights to this, we're going to go up and put some paint in. So let's just drag some of this down first and push some of it up, down and up. And again, this is no concern. When we go too far, we can just brush that back over. Ooh. Crooked lines coming out of the hair don't really add much. And I advise you trying to go with the grain so it doesn't look unnatural. So we haven't done a bad job there, but if we want to add some highlights in here in the hair, again, we can go up here to the color and just move our mouse outside this and say we want to put maybe some more of that color in. So we click OK, and you see what that color looks like. And then we want to go to a dry brush, and when we paint, you see what it looks like is that exact color. So we can actually bring, let's just make it a little bit small. That's pretty heavy, so so you can see my numbers. I changed my flow, the load, and I made it a 12% wet. So that lets me paint in however much I want. So remember, we're painting with that lighter color right now. Just putting some fine hair over in here, lightening that up just a little bit. Now let's change this wetness back to 0%, and let's come in here and we'll just put some hair coming out of here. And let's just put a little bit more in there. And let's go back and make this thing wet, and quit loading the paint. And let's go ahead and just paint that hair back away that's coming through. And again, we can change the flow. Cover that over a little quicker. And yes, we have to paint all the areas on the face, otherwise it looks pretty funny. Now remember, we can make this smooth. In this case, I'm not so sure that seeing the brush strokes a little bit doesn't help. It might help sell it a little bit better. So we just kind of blend the strokes in. I'm just clicking and drag a little bit, let go. Click and drag, let go. Same thing over here. Now we really have to simplify the shirt. I'm just clicking and dragging back and forth. Every time I go this way, I let go, back and forth. Just letting that all come together. And remember, we can change the thickness of the brush bristles. Oops. We need to turn the sample all layers back on so we can actually paint with the green too. Alright. Again, we have some dark areas here. Let's just smooth those first to really bring out those kinds of accents to show the creases and wrinkles, otherwise giving the shirt some texture, some depth. And here's a good bunch of darker area. Make my brush bigger and really get in there and accentuate these things. Can drag some of that down in here to give it some color in there where it's kind of washed out. Remember, if we just paint this perfectly, then it's going to look like a photograph. And that sometimes that's really hard to manage because we're dealing, like right now, I have this really enlarged to work on it, right? And make this smaller with the left bracket key. Bigger again. Click and smear. So then when I zoom out, can we still tell it's a painting? That's the trick. So we got to kind of keep an eye on that to make sure that it still looks like a painting after we're done. You see there's a pattern in this shirt. You got to make sure you get that all smoothed out, otherwise that's a dead giveaway. You would never see that particular color or pattern, sorry, in a painting. So you have to simplify, simplify, simplify. And I'm going to pause this until I've got the shirt filled in. Okay, you see that I've got most of this painted in okay. I want to actually add some accents to the shadows that make them a little harder. So I'm going to go over to the burn tool in my tool palette, and I'm just going to darken some of these shadows just to build a little more contrast. A little bit darker. Which builds a little bit more depth. Let's bring that out. Okay, now we need to tackle the hands and arm. Again, I'm going to use the same brush, but I probably need to make it smaller, right? Now we've got a lot of dark area here. I'm going to push that around a little bit. I'm actually going to go in and let's just I don't really want to stiffen it. There. Let's see what we can do now. So it really brought out the bristle strokes. That's okay. And so we don't have a lot of tonal changes in there. So it's kind of hard to sell the painting. Let's back out and see what that looks like. So we need to go in and change that a bit. Let's get the bristles up. That looks fine. And let's see if we can't do some changes here that will show. That's the trick, is can we make that actually show? And we'll probably put some highlights in here a little bit. Let's go up here and let's sample that and then go with a lot lighter pink. Let's go to dry. Put some lighter on top of the fingers. Let's put some right up here to make that a little bit lighter. And let's go back and turn that off, get back to wet, and blend that in a little bit. And if you just smear it, just keep your mouse down and move your mouse around in the color a little bit. It helps that go away. Let's zoom out a little bit. See, it's hard to see that little bit of area here. Now, when we make it a true 19-inch print or 16 by 20 or something like that, then that's going to show a heck of a lot more. Just love how some of these brushes will blend and make things look so cool. So you can really change how that's going to look and be a lot more drastic than I was with the textures and the face and hands and so forth. Let's go get that dandelion, because that's really, I'm going to turn those off real quick and get back down here to the background. And I'm going to just take my lasso tool and I'm going to grab this dandelion. Although it's not the prettiest in the world, I don't want to take the time to recreate it. So I'm going to do a copy, Control C, go back up here to the top. I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to do a Control V. Let's see, let's do it. Actually, let's go down here to that layer and let's do a Control J. Just put that on there, and then we'll take that up here to the top. We don't need that anymore. And now, got our little guy, got the dandelion up here. I need the paint layer turned on. So now we've got the dandelion on here with him. And now it's time to really paint the dandelion a little bit. So let's go back to our paintbrush. I'm going to, basically I'm just going to sample his shirt. Let's try sampling off here. And let's load up a little bit of that color, change that to dry. So I really want this puffy thing to show, and what better brush to use to make something look puffy. Just kind of building some layers of that up, clicking and dragging. Do a Control Z here a couple of times because I went a little too far. Let's back up, Control 0 or Command 0 on a Mac, and we've created our own dandelion. So this is kind of a fast and crazy tutorial on how to do this. I would finish it up by signing it. So I would just put a new layer on here. Just click the new layer icon and signature. And I will click on my tablet. Now, because it's on its own layer, I can transform it once I'm done. Let me just turn on a more regular brush. Let's do small, and let's see what that looks like. And I need to have white on top. Okay, so that's going to be pretty good. Let me magnify that area a little bit. I can sign it in here anywhere I want to. And then I'm going to Control T that Hold down my shift key. Control 0. And there we go. Move that down just a little bit maybe, or over here. And yes, that's how I assign stuff. Let me make that bigger so you can see. Now that's without any practice. I haven't picked up that pen in a while, but it's a little graphite tablet from Wacom, many years old, but it comes in handy. I like to fade my signature so it doesn't exactly blow things away. And I can also save that signature. I can save this image with its layer and drag the signature out and drop it on another image if I want to. So it's always handy. Sometimes I just name a file signature or an image signature so I know it's got it in there. I could say Bren with signature, and I can drag and drop that signature into any file I want to. All right, that wraps it up. I hope you have some fun with this. It can be, and very soothing as well. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.